This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John McEnroe. Joining me, as always, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski, who I might add, I gotta thank for letting me stew an extra 25 minutes because the Red Wings got screwed again in the NHL draft. They couldn't move up to number 2 or number 1. Odds indicated that they would finish with the 6th pick, and of course, they finished with the number 6 pick. So I'm sitting here all pissed off.
How does that happen?
Like every year, bro. Every year.
I don't get it. Like, here's the thing. I forever and a day will believe that David Stern was very instrumental in the way the ping pong balls fell for the NBA lottery. I will forever and a day believe that. And I don't think there's anything you can really say to ever change my mind. All that being said, does Gary Bettman have a hard-on for Detroit? Does he hate the Red Wings? Because I think these lotteries are manipulated. I don't think they're actually, it's like a roll of the dice. It's one of those things where, hey, we're just going to dump a bunch of balls in here and, hey, Buffalo, you sucked, so you have the best odds of getting number 1. Detroit, you sucked a little bit less. You've got the best odds of getting number 2. Let's just see what happens here, boys. No, I don't think that's the case at all. I don't care what we see on TV. I think most of this shit's all predetermined behind the scenes. I don't understand how the Detroit Red Wings go from last year having the best odds of getting the number 1 overall pick, ended up 4th. This year, they have the number, they're number 2, right? And so they have the best odds at being number 2, and maybe second best odds of being number 1. Yet they end up number 6. What? How do you fall back there? And the thing is, the Wings last year would have fell back even further probably if the rules didn't stipulate that they could only move back 3 places. And I'm pretty sure that's how it's set up this year. They were number 2, number 3. The number 3 position was already taken by Seattle, which explained to me how you have a expansion franchise and they get the 3rd overall pick in the draft. Wait, what? Huh? What? Huh? I don't even think the NHL brass can explain this shit to you. I just don't think anybody gets it. So then they move back, which would technically be 4 spaces, but Seattle is penciled in at 3, so you gotta leapfrog them. They moved back as far as they could move back again. Let's just stack against again. Let's stack the deck against Steve Yzerman. Let's do it. Come on, let's do it. I'm all frustrated. I'm stuttering words. What? Ah! Damn it.
It's not fair because, yeah, the Red Wings have a plethora of picks. They got 12 picks this year, but you need some talent. And you have the 6th pick in 2020 and the 6th pick in 2021. It just left everybody online frustrated. Darren McCarty, myself, you, everybody in the world of Detroit sports was frustrated. I mean, look, it's bad when you can call the position they're going to pick 20 minutes before the draft. I mean, we knew the numbers. They could have picked 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, or 8. And I said, it looks like they're going to go 6th. It's just the way it is. And unfortunately for the Wings, now it's going to test Steve Yzerman, which I guess you looked at the talent that he's drafted. He's got to do more work. He's got to get those amateur scouts working, and they got to figure out how to get more talent. And unfortunately for Red Wing supporters, and for everybody in Detroit, you are not going to be the beneficiary of good luck ever. So just get used to it. I mean, did you see our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast? Scroll. Look what the people were messaging me. Some dude put lube on his finger and said, "Get ready, boy." And I was like,
we have the best Twitter followers. I swear.
I mean, they prepared me nice and early for what was going to happen. I mean, I knew it was coming, so I told everybody it's going to be the 6th pick, and that's the way it shook out. So, unfortunately, it's just not going to work out for the Red Wings, and now we got to see who is going to fall in that slot in the coming weeks at number 6 and who we want. We'll get that in the coming weeks. But now let's turn our attention to the biggest thing going on in Detroit sports. Detroit Lions are participating in OTAs. I got to witness last Thursday, the first week of OTAs. Today, if the weather cooperates later on this afternoon, I'll get the second opportunity to go out there and see what this is all about with the returning veteran Michael Brockers, who is now in Detroit, ready to participate in OTAs and the mandatory minicamp. So I think everyone wants to continue to see what this offense will look like, what Jared Goff and DeAndre Swift will produce, how everything goes in terms of the impressions that Dan Campbell and the coaching staff will have regarding these players. And that's about it at this point, just kind of getting a little sense of what Dan Campbell thinks, because there's very few. It's just 10 plays, 7-on-7. And they're scripted, and Jared Goff, I got a chance to watch up close, throws a nice ball, gave a little bit of air, but look, there's no pressure, there's no pads, there's no real sense of football. It's just installs. It's basically a glorified walkthrough. And it's nice to see, though. You get a chance to kind of talk to the coaching staff, a bunch of players ahead of mandatory minicamp. So now everybody's delving in. Everybody's looking at the quarterback, and everybody wants to know, Doc, what do you think about Jared Goff? What do you see? What do you think? And collectively, I think that what everybody is seeing is so true. What the Lions have is a quarterback that can be very serviceable if things are built well around him with an O-line, a run game, and protection. So, do I believe that Jared Goff can scramble and extend plays and make miracles and make chicken salad out of chicken shit? No. You have to protect him better than you ever protected Matthew Stafford. You have to be able to establish a running game so that the play action can be opened up, so that some of these receivers can get open and make some plays. Now, is Jared Goff going to throw a zip pass? No. Does he have accuracy and nice touch and building rapport with Hawkinson? Absolutely. He found him early and often in the 7-on-7 drills. And I think that early on, what you're going to see is, this is a gamer. This is a guy that will go out there and compete. But if the defensive line starts dominating Detroit's offensive line and he's got to run for his life, it's going to be a nightmare because they can make the Lions one-dimensional real quick. And if Jared Goff doesn't have that little bit of time, a little bit of opportunity to survey the landscape, I don't know if he's going to get an opportunity to hit his third and fourth reads, especially in the National Football League. And the big thing that everybody saw, was last year when he was pressured, the turnovers spiked so high that Sean McVay pulled his hair out and said, "Give me the guy from Detroit." I mean, he literally was like, "I don't want Jared Goff, I want Matthew Stafford." So to be frustrated that much by a quarterback, he had to have pissed off his head coach to the highest degree. So I think that you're building a game manager and somebody to say, look, just don't hurt us. Go out there. And I think the players love a guy like that because that he's going to get him the ball in good spots. But the problem is, and the early concern that I would have, is that I don't see this offense going deep too often because you don't have the guys that are the speediest to do the job. I think that cornerbacks going into the season have a little bit of an edge on the Lions receivers. And I had a chance to have a talk with some of the media, and they were saying the same thing. They're all befuddled that the Lions in 2021 are going into the season with this receiving corps. Rashad Perriman, Terrell Williams, and Quintez Cephas are not going to scare anybody. Nobody.
But here's the thing. I think that offense, basically all the pieces that you just listed, are complements for Jared Goff. Jared Goff, you said it yourself, isn't able to command the power with the arm strength to get the ball downfield. They don't have receivers to do that, so you don't really have to worry about that. You just take that off the plate. You need to be able to protect Jared Goff. Well, you just drafted arguably the best player in the draft who's an offensive lineman, and you're going to pair him with arguably your best unit, which is your offensive line. You have possibly two Pro Bowlers in Frank Ragnow and in Decker. So now you add in your young rookie, and all of a sudden I think that kind of solidifies itself. So what does all this do? This helps Jared Goff. All of this. You bring in a veteran running back who was pretty good in Green Bay. Add that to the mix. You just talked about it. This is a team that's going to have to run the ball in order to win. So what do? You go get that running back. You pair him with DeAndre Swift, who's going to be a guy who's going to catch balls out of the backfield. What does Jared Goff do really, really well? It's a lot of the check down game. It's a lot of the underneath stuff. It's a lot of the 5 and the 10-yard passes. It's not whipping the ball into what you would deem, I don't know, roughly a coffee cup size hole and hoping that your wide receiver comes out the other end with it and can go stretch the field and score a touchdown. That's not what he does. He's a guy who's got to sit back, have hardly no pressure, survey the field, and then when TJ Hawkinson gets open on a comeback route, or when DeAndre Swift leaks out the back and he can get hit in the flats with a pass, or when you have a guy like Brashad Perriman running outside slant, he can get hit along the sideline 7 yards down the field. You know, he's a guy who does a lot of the intermediate stuff and a lot of the short stuff very, very well. And the way this offense has been put together, I think it complements him. And that's why you see and you hear all these things about Jared Goff coming out of camp. Yeah, I think it's great that he got together with almost this entire offensive unit ahead of time and was able to work with a bunch of these guys. I think it's great that he's had OTAs and he's putting in the work to get to know these guys and to build this rapport with guys like Hawkinson. I think that's fantastic. And look, I think he's a guy who understands, especially at this point, right? I mean, at this point in his career, he's been in the league, 3-4 years? 5 years now? You kind of know what you bring to the table. You know what you do well. You know what you don't do well. So him being able to loft a ball down the field and put some touch and a little bit of air underneath it so his wide receivers can run underneath it and make a catch, and it gets referred to as a pretty ball, that doesn't really surprise me. But I think what you're seeing and what you're kind of hearing out of this coaching staff, and I think that's what I'm probably most impressed with, is what I'm hearing out of this coaching staff. You don't hear Dan Campbell overly glorifying anything he's doing. He's like, yeah, they're good baby steps. They're good first steps. Like, Dan Campbell's under no ill-conceived thought process that Jared Goff's a guy like, we'll say, Aaron Rodgers or even Tom Brady. Not even Tom Brady in his prime, but Tom Brady last year when Tampa Bay got hot and they ripped off a bunch of wins to win the Super Bowl. Or he's not even saying that Jared Goff's a guy like Patrick Mahomes who's got arm strength and can throw from different slots and different angles and just basically pull rabbits out of hats and make passes downfield. He's not saying any of that. What he's telling you is, hey, we got a guy who we've put some pieces around him. Wide receivers aren't great. Running backs look pretty good. But we're going to be a team that's going to basically be 3 yards, cloud of dust, and every now and then we're going to throw the ball outside and we'll pick up 7-10 yards. And that's what this team's going to be. This isn't going to be an explosive offense, and hopefully the fans understand that. I think you get that. I think you understand that. You see what they're doing and what they're trying to install. This is going to be a dink and dunk offense when they pass it. But for the most part, I think what you're going to get this year, you're going to get a team that's going to be incredibly run heavy. It'll probably be more of a 60-40, maybe a 65-35 split for the run game, which is really counter to what we're used to with where the National Football League's going. It's become a passing league. The Lions are kind of trying to dial that back, and I think trying to dial that back, they're trying to protect their quarterback is what they're trying to do, and they're trying to not really expose a lot of his flaws and a lot of the things he can't do well. Again, good leaders. We talked about this with Matt Patricia. Good leaders put players in positions to win. So how do you do that?
Do you
take things off the table that they don't do well? And I think that's what this organization has done.
Do you know what his yards in the air passing average was last year? The number
wasn't like 15.7 or something like that. It wasn't a lot.
No, less. 4.8 yards.
Are you for real? That low?
Yeah, exactly. Meaning that he wasn't willing too many times to throw the ball into tight coverage, into tight windows. And when I saw that, I messaged the writer and I said, damn, there's a chance it could go less this year. 4.5 yards. Because of the fact that, you look at the way in which this offense is going to be predicated. I think that you give the defense, you have to have a little bit. I think Quintez Cephas and Hawkinson will extend the offense. You have to throw the ball a little bit more in that intermediate range, 15 to 25 yards periodically. Mm-hmm. And I think you're going to take those chances with Tyrell Williams, but it's all predicated on the time that Goff gets. And I think that's what's going to be early, is that he's got to get off to that hot start early, because you don't want people to start questioning him right away, because right away you get the sense that people are okay with Goff, but they're not superly attached. You're seeing a bunch of mock drafts with each and every college quarterback known to man that's eligible being selected by the Lions with the number 2 or 3 pick. So people are not fully committed to this California kid that's come to Detroit. So early on, to see him, succeed and make plays and to show a little bit of that grittiness, I think will help to build support. And I'm hoping that he can show some of that grit early on. And I think he's developing rapport with the receivers and with Mark Brunell, his quarterback coach. And I think that Anthony Lynn is going to tailor an offense that's going to be a little bit, a mixture of a lot of different things. But yeah, that run game has to get off the ground. And I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see if the coaching staff makes the proper adjustments as we head into the mandatory mini camps. And now, we know the preseason schedule, and now after the mini camp, you get like a couple weeks off, like 5 weeks, where you just get a chance to see what everybody thinks. And right now, most analysts believe the Lions are going to be basement dwellers, and that's no problem. But there's an opportunity for this team to have way more success than Matt Patricia ever did. Cause did you see what was written over the weekend? I think everybody's jaw hit the floor because nobody believes that Matt Patricia should have any more future in the National Football League based on what he did in Detroit. Even those that reference Bill Belichick would say, man, that was a character that went to the Browns, but at least got them to the playoffs, at least showed something. Matt Patricia in Detroit didn't show anything. Lack of willingness to adapt, poor locker room management. The players never really gravitated toward him. And you saw him wanting Jelani Tavai at damn near 270 pounds to play linebacker, where this coaching staff is like, bro, stop eating and come in at 250. And that's it. Lose 20 pounds and get down here and we'll put you in the stack position that you like and we'll see what we can do with you. So then you see that you read over the weekend that potentially, and I love the word groomed. It's just, I don't know, it made me laugh all weekend. I made a bunch of jokes. Matt Patricia being groomed to take over for Bill Belichick. I feel like that's a major step down. But then, obviously our toxic Lions brain goes, is there a chance that Matt Patricia takes over for New England, has all these talented players, he gets Mac Jones in year 2 and year 3, and all of a sudden becomes the next coming of Bill Belichick? I can't imagine that. My mind kind of goes there because I go, well, yeah, of course. He'd go there and shine and look like the greatest head coach in the history of the world with a defense that gives up many, many yards, but an offense that has a special quarterback in Mac Jones, who we could have had. But I can't imagine that. What was your reaction when you saw that? Because collectively, Detroit and the nation was like, oh, the AFC East loves this. And I felt the same way that I don't see Matt Patricia being successful, and I think he could sink the New England Patriots franchise. I think the best thing that could happen for him is you let Josh McDaniels take over and you let Matt Patricia be the GM, let him pick the groceries, and then you can go from there. Don't let this man coach. If you're a fan of Boston, I think that's what you have to be hoping for.
I wouldn't even let Matt Patricia be the GM. I could see him coming back in as the defensive coordinator, but not the GM. Look, I was blown away when I seen it. When I seen that headline, I was like, no way. Like, you can't be serious. I was like, you know what, though? This is the thing. This is what blows me away about New England. New England's so arrogant and they're so damn cocky, right? Like, I could see it happen just because Bill Belichick thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. You know what I'm saying? On top of that, Patricia's almost exactly like Belichick. I don't think he's as smart as Belichick, but he's almost exactly like him. Neither one of those guys really ever have a lot of fun. Neither one of those guys smile a whole lot. They both tend to believe their own press clippings a little bit too much. Both of them are arrogant as hell. And both of them have this really salty way with the media, which I don't necessarily understand. And we're going to talk about the media and athletes coming up here in a few moments, but I just don't get why they have to be salty.
Yeah, thumbs down. Absolutely. I think that nobody could just see it happening, but the pieces are there. You see the money they spent. They said he's an integral part in Mac Jones, that he looked over a lot of the contracts. He's been groomed. Bill Belichick maybe has been giving him like, okay, here's where you messed up in Detroit. You messed up the locker room. Nowadays, you gotta let these kids have some fun. Maybe he ends up learning from his mistakes and getting people that absolutely can fit where he's looking to accomplish. But we just didn't see nothing. We didn't see any adaptation. We didn't see any blitzing. We didn't see, we saw a couple games where the team fought, but you couldn't win with Matthew Stafford. You couldn't create a complimentary defense for a talent that other NFL teams coveted and were willing to give up 2 first-round picks for. Oh, I just wanted to just share that and chuckle a little bit with you because I think that was the one of the funniest things I think I've seen. But keep that in the back burner. We'll see. I think Bill Belichick's probably going to be like one of those guys that's like, if Tom Brady's going to stick around for another 5 years, then so am I. Damn it, I'm getting my ring. I want my opportunity to show that it wasn't just Tom Brady, and he's got a chance with what they've done. They got a decent team.
Do you think that Belichick is that stubborn and is that petty to where he will hang out until he wins at least one more just to prove that it wasn't Tom Brady?
That competitive, bro. I believe it. I believe that a guy like that, why would you stick around for rings number 5 and 6 when you got 4? Should I be happy with 3? We're like, bro, we're going on a boat. We're partying. You know what I mean? Rings 4, 5, and 6. Are you kidding me? Get out of here with that. So much in regards to what he's done in the game. He's 69 years old. Jesus. Yeah. Why do you want to hang around with a bunch of 20-year-old kids when you're 69 years old and suck the life out of the room? But we'll see. We'll see if this new incarnation of the Patriots will come out and turn heads and get back to the postseason. Yeah, because I definitely was intrigued by this whole Osaka situation with the French Open. And for those that don't know, there's a tennis player that has expressed some strong anxiety and depression. And unfortunately, there's obligations that a tennis tournament would like to have in regards to a player talking after a match and expressing everything that, you kind of do after a tennis match, which is talk about the match, talk about everything going on. And unfortunately, she decided and she just said, you know what? Naomi Osaka, a really talented tennis player who rose onto the scene when she won a major tennis tournament. She said, look, I just don't want to do that. I just am not comfortable. I will not do that. So they fined her, and once they did that, all the eyes of the media were on her. And unfortunately, when the pressure started to cave in around her, she said, I can't handle this anymore. And so she just said, if you're going to up the pressure on me, threaten to kick me out of the tournament, I'm just going to withdraw myself. Now, she's not a strong-ass clay court player, so it's not like you're missing out on, a player that was really going to win the tournament, but you still have a top-ranked player. You never want to let go of a top 10 player in the world in your tournament. So it opens up this big, huge can of worms, which I love because I'm uniquely in the position to comment on both sides of it, being in the media and being that I'm a psychologist. So I understand exactly where she's coming from in that she doesn't want to answer the question because inevitably when you lose or when you don't play well, someone's going to ask you, so what happened and everything like that. But here's the thing, okay? Here's the point where I disagree with Naomi. The point is, if you recognize that there's something wrong with your mental health and things like that, don't come to the tournament. Take some time off. Get that corrected. Her team failed her. If at some point, and hopefully now I think she's going to keep getting the help she needs, at some point, okay, everybody that is a professional athlete, and I think it should be done sooner rather than later, and who's had it and you right away, these athletes as part of their entrance into a professional sport need media training. They need to know how to answer the questions. There's only so many questions that a media member is going to ask you in the world of tennis. In other sports, it's vastly different. In tennis, you can give so many different ways of delivering a canned answer. Well, my forehand wasn't good today. It just wasn't where it needed to be. I need to get back to the practice court. I look forward to getting there and really getting back strong and competing at the next tournament. It's easy to do if you have the training and you've had all the questions. Her team needed to prepare her. So to the point where, my psychology side comes in is that her interpretation of what these losses mean is vastly higher than what it needs to be. Wins and losses do not reflect on you personally. She's got to way diminish that, and you got to look at it, and if she gets help, what the counselor's going to tell her is focus on the day's task. What do you want to work on today to be a better tennis player? And if you feel like you put in the best output you can, then you go on to the next thing. A loss doesn't mean you're the worst player in the world. She's battling toxic thoughts to the degree in which it paralyzes her, and that's unfortunate because it's cost the tournament. But now my ability as a sports person is, hey, the tournament has obligation to get the players to show up to the court and fulfill their obligation. So I agree 100%. And for the debate that says, oh, athletes don't have to talk to the media, it's really fascinating because I can share that basically quote articles don't do the best on, sites. I can tell you that pretty much hands down. People want to hear interesting quotes. So for the last 3 years, they didn't do that well because the Lions were giving a bunch of canned answers. But if there's an intriguing way you can deliver a story based on someone's delivery, then it's all good. But I think the athletes should talk to the media. I don't think they should get, this notion of, oh, they get to choose and things like that. They're pretty selective now. If you want, any sports athlete can pick a reporter that they can gain favor with and just start giving information. There's a whole website called the Players Tribune you can go to and deliver a message. So our job is to be creative in finding avenues of telling a story, but I see both sides of it. I think that the media should definitely continue to ask questions and ask tough questions because we're the conduit to the fan. But for the player, I understand definitely that not everybody could handle having the Detroit Podcast Twitter page because we get some nasty things sent to us. You're this, you're that, you know what? And I like it all. I joke around. I take a sarcastic approach, but there are days you're like, damn, do people hate me? Do I suck? You have that. But then the next thing you say is, you know what? We've been here this long. People like us. People are engaged with us. We have this process. So I do the positive self-talk to uplift myself. We all deal with insecurity. But to the degree that I would not go online, I go online every single day and take it because you have to have the proper mindset, the proper mental health to be able to handle everything. So both sides handled it wrong. I think the tournament could have been a little bit more sympathetic to her needs, but she needs to step away from the game, get extensive couple times a week therapy, and get some strong media training. Athletes have to talk to the media. Otherwise, you're in a position where you're going to hurt the business, and you can't do that in a big money world of sports. You just can't do it. You cannot avoid the media.
I think both sports and media kind of need each other, and they have to go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
That being said, I think the big issue here is how Roland Garros kind of handled it and how the Tennis Federation kind of handled it by her basically opening up and saying, hey, I've got this going on. I don't feel comfortable. I'm dealing with some mental health issues. And they're like, well, you need to talk to the media, otherwise you're going to get fined. And then they fine her, and basically, like you said, they opened up a whole can of worms. Like, a prime example of this would be like a HIPAA violation, right? And this isn't a HIPAA violation, but this would be the equivalent of something similar to a HIPAA violation. Like, she went and she basically said, hey guys, this is what I've got going on. And they're like, cool. So you can pack sand or you'll get fined.
You're saying she needed a note from a doctor that potentially should give her a pass.
What I'm saying is the way this was handled by the Tennis Federation and by Roland Garros was absolutely despicable and was sad. That's like the second saddest part of all of this. The first sad part is the fact that she's going through this. This isn't like her first time doing this. You can go back and listen to audio. I think it's from 2018.
Yeah,
she's
you heard
having an interview, and the interviewer is basically talking to her about what happened, and she just lost the match, so you can kind of get why she feels so sad, but she's just like,
I'm sad.
I feel so sad. Like, I feel so sad. Like, you could just tell, like, she's not right. Like, she's not comfortable. Yeah. So, for the Tennis Federation, one, to turn a cold shoulder to her, and for the venue itself to do what they did, to me, it just screams of, one, insensitivity, two, not giving a shit about a player's mental health, which is a huge deal, especially where we're at now. Like, in society, you just need to be smarter, right? Like, just be better. That's all it really comes down to. Be more human. That's all it really is. Mental health is such a big deal. Like, you talk about it. You yourself are a mental health advocate. You work in the profession. I myself, I have a standing therapy session every week, sometimes every other week, all right? And if you don't think it's done a hell of a lot of good for me, the fact that John is still alive and I haven't killed him is proof that it does wonders for you. I love you.
Yes.
Guys. Just joking. Yes. On top of all of it, my divorce was pretty bad for me. Fucked me up pretty good. And it's helped me get through a lot of tough spots. So, like, mental health and mental health advocates are a huge deal, and they're very, very important. For a player to be going through this and feeling like she's feeling, And for the federation and for the venue to just be like, look, tough titties, this is what it is absolutely horrible. I had a friend back in, I think it was might have been 2019. Maybe, no, it wasn't 2019. It was probably closer to 2017. Ended up killing himself. A really good friend of mine. I've got stickers and I've got stuff in my car that remind me of him every day. I usually wear a bracelet around my wrist that reminds me of him, but I gave it to a girl who herself was going through some suicidal thoughts and had some suicidal tendencies. And it was a way to basically pull her back from the brink because she was doing a lot of self-harm and doing a lot of bad things. So mental health, having a mental health advocate is important, and it's not one of those things that you can just ball up and throw away. That's where I'm going with all of this.
Yeah,
to me, it's frustrating.
It's very tough because you see both sides of the coin, and you realize that the way in which the federation would probably be looking at it is, if she was not well, why did she sign up for the tournament? But you have to also have some sensitivity to the fact that, hey, you know what? You can get a waiver. Give us a note from a psychiatrist that says, hey, you're just not feeling it, and we can make an adjustment. But the problem is, nowadays, everybody takes advantage of certain situations in regards to claiming mental health situations when they're not really there, and potentially you don't want athletes just saying, well, I'm anxious, so I don't want to talk after a loss. You don't want that selectivity where athletes can pick and choose, because they'll just choose not to talk to the media. They'll dismiss it altogether because they hate the whole process. Whereas on both sides of it, I think that it's a real good test about your mental health to answer questions, if you're playing good and things like that. And you also have to remember, she's been an advocate for some social things that have been really tough. So I think that opened up potentially some more discourse that maybe she wasn't comfortable with, because when you go down the road of social justice, you're going to get a bunch of people that are going to tell you some stupid things on that front. But bottom line, I think she's going to get the help she needs, and she's going to come back stronger. And I think if she advocates, the real question will be if she decides to advocate for the ability not to talk to the media if you don't want to. And I think that's going to be a very slippery slope, because other teams and other athletes and other leagues will watch that, because right now the NFL's got it good. The athletes don't have to talk a whole heck of a lot. I think we've talked to Jeff Okuda maybe 6 times in 12 months. So they get a cushion. They get to deny, they only have to appear, I believe, once a month minimum. They have a certain minimum, and reporters can test it. But, with how things are with the Lions, with Zoom, it made it great because they made it a little bit more available. But I think that what's important here is, and I think the starting point is, and it makes you a better person too, because you have more sympathy for an athlete when you ask a question. But the starting point has to be that the relationship between reporters and athletes has to steadily improve, because you can sense there's a big distrust between athletes who don't want their quotes taken out of context and have clickbait artists try to just, manufacture things. And then you got reporters who are like, dude, just answer the question and don't be this type of individual that's standoffish and give 2-word answers. Or like Jamie Collins or a couple people did, when you ask a question, you'd be like, why are you asking? It's like, I'm asking because the fans want to know. And that's the basis of most questions, is kind of getting at some inside information. And I think that athletes that get it, they're willing to embrace the media and really be funny and be quick-witted and also give serious answers. Like I said, if you've been trained well, you know quickly how to dodge a question, how to talk in circles and then move things forward. Or I like it. Even Brad Holmes does it. He's like, he's got his saying, out of respect for the process, I'm not talking about this guy's contract. And you just move forward. But I think that what the fun has been now with Dan Campbell, he's like, look, I don't go from a script. I just speak whatever's in my heart, and that's what comes out. So I just hope these athletes can really understand that the media can help you. They can bridge the gap between you and the fans. And as long as there's a mutual respect, we can keep it moving. But I really do hope that athletes, and they continue to talk about it, continue to focus on their mental health. And like you said, go to therapy if you need it. Talk about the importance of maintaining a proper ego level, maintaining proper handling of wins and losses, and understand that the job, it's just a job. It's a profession, that you can have a personal life that's so far away from the media. And part of your job as a tennis player is not just whacking a good forehand, but it's also addressing the media when you lose in a professional manner. And let's hope that it takes place. Who's a guy that, has the blessing of talking to the media 3 times a year. Miguel Cabrera. he comes and talks to the media 3 times a year. And luckily, what's been fascinating, cuz, with the Tigers is just as the noise ramps up to say, hey, Miguel Cabrera's batting 4th and his average sucks, he has a game where he gets a couple RBIs. It's like he has one good game and then 9 bad ones. Mm-hmm. And then we're all at the point where we're like, all right, it's about time to go in on Miguel Cabrera. And then the game before, he drives in a bunch of runs. It's really fascinating. But overall, when you look at it, everybody knows Miguel Cabrera has lost his power. He hits a lot of singles. He's not the guy that we're used to. And so everybody's looking at it. They're making their suggestions. And I think a lot of smart people are making the right assessments here. Miguel Cabrera, Noah said it. Some prominent media members have said it. Noah on the Open Mic podcast, which drops every Tuesday, he noticed it. You can't have an under 200 no power hitter batting 4th. It's common sense. Look, we all understand what you're doing. You're parading him out there to get the accolades, to get the career milestones. But he can't be batting 4th, cuz. What's the deal?
At this point, you have to remember, this entire offensive lineup has been more or less built around him. And I think that's a huge flaw in the way that parts of this team is put together. He has to be moved down the lineup. Like, the fact that he's allowed to play is basically all the respect he should be getting right now. And look, when they signed him to that massive contract, we all knew this day was coming. We knew it was going to be an ugly ending. There's just no way. Like, power hitters don't have power all the way to the very end unless they're on some super serum. And obviously Miguel Cabrera is not on that. But you cannot allow him to keep sabotaging your lineups every single night. Like, what if I told you, I feel like this is a ESPN for 30 for 30. What if I told you there was a baseball team that had a $30 million player who was all the way at the very bottom of every statistical category for their team? Jamer Candelario has more runs. Robbie Grossman. Who the hell's Robbie Grossman? Robbie Grossman has more runs. Nico Goodrum has more runs than Miguel Cabrera. Willie Castro. Akil Baddoo has more runs than Miguel Cabrera. Eric Haas has more runs than Miguel Cabrera. You go and you look at hits, and it's a lot of the same names. Like, Miguel Cabrera is so far down the list. If you want, here, a good one. On base percentage, right? OPS. OPS. If you look at OPS, Miguel Cabrera is, I want to say it's like 12th on this team. Like, everybody is ahead of Miguel Cabrera in OPS. He is, at this point, he's a liability. He is no longer an asset on your roster. Miguel Cabrera's WAR is -0.8. Miguel Cabrera used to be a player that you could lean on. You can no longer count on him. And he's hurting your lineup. This team is winning in spite of him. This team goes out there. You have days where the pitching is on. You have days where the hitting is on. You have days where the fielding is on. Then you have days where it all falls apart and none of it's on. Or you'll have one of the two that's working, or you'll have one of the three that's working, or you have two of the three that are working and the one's not. And like, this is the definition of a bad baseball team. But the thing is, this baseball team is kind of figuring things out as the season's progressing. And the one guy who's kind of holding it back is Miguel Cabrera. And at this point, the thing we used to talk about, and the thing we could almost pencil it in on a calendar, was when's he going to get hurt? When's Miguel Cabrera going to go down with an injury? And like, his stats would slip up to the injury, he'd get hurt, and then they would slip as he came back from the injury, and then he'd get hurt again. Look, he's not hurt. He's not dealing with anything. He's just not any good anymore. And he's just an albatross hanging around this team's neck. The fact that he still gets paraded out there in the 3rd and 4th hole is unfreaking real. This guy needs to be moved down the lineup. He should be batting 7th, 8th, or 9th for you. He is hurting this team. And look, I know what they want. They want him to have all of these, like you said, the accolades. They want him to hit all of these statistical numbers and all of these highlights so you can say, hey, Miguel Cabrera was a Detroit Tiger when he did X, Y, and Z. I get it. But this team is young, it's developing, and you're pretty much putting a star's statistics ahead of a team coming together and trying to win. And I think there's a huge problem with that. I think there's a massive issue with that. And I think it's sad. And I think it tells you where this organization is, whether it is Chris Ilitch, whether it is Al Avila, or whether it is whatever it is, I think it's a sad state of the Detroit Tigers right now.
But give them credit, they are playing better baseball. Went 14-13 in the month of May. And like we said, I thought that they could play 500 baseball. And you look at starting pitching is doing well. And unfortunately, Matthew Boyd is not holding up to his end of the bargain the last 4 or 5 starts. And true to form, he starts the season off well, and then people watch the film and they go, oh yeah, we can get back to cranking home runs against him. But the rest of the pitching staff, give credit to Michael Fulmer for embracing the role of closer. The bullpen is being used in perfect situations, and A.J. Hinch has got a calm, steady hand on this team. And yeah, now it's all upon Chris Ilitch and Al Avila to get some of these young cats up here and figure out who's going to be gone in this continued rebuild. Because A.J. Hinch is a solid manager. You see this team, and they play hard for him. They play competitive. They play very well. So it's unfortunate that you got a guy in Miguel Cabrera who's unfortunately a major, major anchor that's kind of right there. And unfortunately, guys, get used to it. Not only this year, but 2 more years. I don't know. Maybe by the end of the year, we'll have the talk about spending Chris Ilitch's money and just buy him out and say sayonara. But I don't see them doing it when they're that cash strapped. They just want to keep good favor and just let him retire gracefully. But let's see how this progresses, because you definitely are giving up a bunch of RBIs and a bunch of power by having a subpar hitter right now batting in that cleanup spot. So you know who's not subpar? The Detroit Sports Podcast Network. We bat anywhere positively from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, and we'll perform. And we'll perform well. We're living up to our end of the contract. And that's thanks to you guys for subscribing. Anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe button when you search Detroit Sports Podcast. All our daily content will find you. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. We can't thank you enough for what you guys have done for us. You know, letting us broadcast a couple thousand podcasts, weighing in on all the big topics, getting in the mix, and for the great responses that you give us. And it makes us feel important and special to be a tiny part of the Detroit sports community, going strong since 2013. Thanks, cuz. I love the broadcast. I can't wait to talk to you later on this week about wrestling, because holy cow, companies talk about a company making a bad decision. What the WWE is doing, we got to break it down on the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. Thanks, cuz. I look forward to next Thursday when we talk again for Doc and Jock.